Everybody, it's Mark Koep with CampgroundViews.com. I'm bringing you a special session today to talk to somebody. Jim Turntine, in particular, has agreed to join me today, and I believe he's on to something pretty special here. So I've got his Facebook page up. It's RV Self Park, or Route 66 RV Self Park, located southwest of St. Louis, Missouri. And as this overhead shot shows, it's right off the interstate. So Jim, I think you're on to something. I've talked in this Facebook group about what you're building and how I think this may be part of the future of RVing and RV destinations. So why don't you share with us this concept you're building and where you're going with this?
Okay, happy to. Thanks for talking to me. So what we're building here is a prototype or a proving ground for the concept that I intend to build more of, and basically the higher population centers on the edge of the cities, if you will, or just into the city, where you have more things going on, more reason to want to use your RV, but right now you kind of can't. So I happen to have had this property, and it mitigated some of the risk in developing the business model. But in simplest terms, what we're building is a self-service RV park where you have the basics, you have all the things you need, and we want it to be stress-free, so that it's for the transient, more transient, I guess you would say, traveler. It's not a campground. We're not building a campground, and in many ways, it's like comparing a mini mart to Walmart, or a hotel that's off the beaten path, possibly, to the hotels that are right on the exit ramp. That may not be as good of an example, but ultimately, when we complete this project in the next few months, which is our target time, it is open now. I call it a soft opening because we can serve guests. We've had guests, and a lot of the automation that we're working on is already in place. But ultimately, it will be completely automated. We won't have staff there. We don't have staff there now. So what we're doing already is somewhat automated in regard to turning on the services. When this project is done, the way I envision our guests would be served is they would come to our website through various ways, Facebook, Google, however you want to get to us, and you will be able to book a site the day of or however far ahead that you might need to. And we would give you a confirmation number, much like a hotel room that you booked, or concert tickets that you bought. And we will confirm your reservation, and we'll give you that confirmation number and tell you, you have site 12 on January the 14th at 4 p.m. or later. And you would drive right in and pull into the site and park, and our site will have sensors in them to know that you're there. You would then come back to our site and check in with that confirmation number that we gave you, which will then cause the electric to come on, the water to come on, and you would have access to sewer whenever electric comes on. And any other time, everything is dead. The park is lit, so if you come in at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's like driving into similar to a Walmart parking lot as far as the light level. You're not going to be stressed. Our objective is for it to be the most stress-free parking experience you can have. So everything is paved, everything is painted. The photo that you can see here on the screen was from a few weeks ago. We've advanced since then, and we've got a photo shoot this Thursday that we'll be updating photos and video shortly thereafter. But the park is advanced to the point that now literally there's stripes. You pull in, you just follow the arrows, so to speak. Pull into site 12. Every site has a large lighted sign on it. You'll be able to see your site when you pull in off the interstate. You can see it from 200 yards away. We have literally a 2-foot diameter sign on every site. So once you're there, your power and water will be on, and you're welcome to stay as long as you want during your reserved time, or increase the time if you need to. And when you're done, you'll pack up and go on about your business. We built this one here because we owned the property and it mitigated some of our risk, but we do have our eye on several other sites. And once we perfect all of our hardware and software that we're developing, integrated all together, then we'll be ready to roll if I'm right. And in the meanwhile, we'll find out if I'm right on the business model by talking to our guests and watching our traffic patterns and see what happens. So any questions on that? Maybe that was too much.
Yeah. I've got a ton of Yeah, I've got a ton of questions on this because as I shared with you off the air, and I may have even shared it in the opening, I think you're onto something here. And I've shared this many times before, and I actually penned an article a few years ago that this was coming down the line. And I know I've spoken to a lot of people who manufacture the pedestals and so forth. And this type of technology is there. It just hasn't been used in this way. And so you're kind of jumping on it, saying, hey, there's an opportunity here. And you actually mentioned a name in your open there, Walmart. I mean, in essence, this is a viable alternative to Walmart. And let's talk about the reasons why. So you price this, and you're very upfront with it. It's $39 for 16 hours, I believe, if that's correct. And then there's some certain add-ons, and you're obviously playing with the price and so forth, but you're not, this isn't $5 a night. You're actually charging for the amenities and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about the general concept here is you're utilizing technology to create a self-service, full-service RV park for people to pull in off the interstate and sleep somewhere other than in the parking lot at a Cracker Barrel or a Walmart, correct?
Exactly, or Flying J, which we have all three of those within a mile of this park. And people are still in those places, trying to get through the night. And I've done that. And the reason that I've taken this risk or this step forward, I don't think it's a lot of risk. I think we'll be successful. The reason I did it is because I've lived it. I've had RVs for most of my adult life, and I am more of a traveler. I'm not a camper. I can't tell you last time I went camping. I used my RV. I've got a 42-foot Thor Tuscany, 3 years old, I think it is, maybe 4 now. And I've had multiple. This is my 5th pusher, I believe, that we've owned. So I own other businesses. I'm busy like a lot of people are today. I don't have time to plan my trips a lot of times. We don't know when we can leave. We have an old dog. We don't like leaving our dog. So I have experienced in multiple occasions that I want to go somewhere and I don't know where I'm stopping tonight until I get there. And then, will the RV park that I find be 5 miles off the highway? Will it be 20 minutes out of my way? What will it be? I do not like sleeping at Walmart. I'm not one of those people that like using my generator when I'm asleep. I don't like parking in places where I'm not quite sure if I had to worry about locking all of the doors. Of course I do, but it's still in the middle of the night. It's still an uneasy feeling when you don't know if somebody's going to knock on the door and say, what the hell are you doing here? And I just don't do it. I just don't like doing it. So I'm happy to pay the hookup price for 8 or 9 hours. And that's probably how long I average in most RV parks is 8 or 9 hours. I can't tell you the last time I stayed for multiple days unless I was where I was going. When I get where I'm going, yeah, I might spend 2 or 3 days somewhere. But in between, I'm covering miles on my way to a trade show, a business meeting, a NASCAR race, something like that I'm on my way to go to. And I usually go a long way. I'm not one of those guys going 30 miles and camping for the weekend. I'm not doing that. And I see every morning in my travels, I see 10 or 15, 20 other people in the park doing the same thing. So, well,
it's interesting because what you've built here doesn't exist in the market right now. So, and I'll get a little bit. Some people will bounce back at me and say, no, we're an overnight park and we're along the highway, and you are. But this is full on self-service, and it sounds like you've got a pretty clear identity on who it is that'll be staying at this park. And I personally believe that you're and I've said that already, is that you're onto something here. You're kind of seeing the future and you're creating it, because when we look further down the road, say we look 15, 20 years down the road and we start seeing self-driving cars coming on board and all that type of stuff, when you think through that concept, like I'm going to be hopping on a plane here tomorrow to fly to Sacramento. I am absolutely despising the entire thought of doing that. I don't like flying. I don't like going through security. I don't like rental cars. I don't like hotels. I have to do all three of those things in order to go someplace. But if I had the option to take an RV and know that, hey, when I'm tired, I can stop, hook up, and go. And it doesn't matter if I pull in at 10:30 at night. I'm not going to knock on the door and piss somebody off who's sleeping in order to check in. I can just pull in, have the lights, and hook up, and then go in the morning. In a way, you're kind of building that leap. It's a truck stop for RVs, but without all the inconveniences of a truck stop. Correct?
I'd rather call it a hotel for RVs. I mean, you're
I like that.
The truck stop and staying at a Flying J or something like that. We've all done that. And again, you've got the air brakes all night long. You've got people coming in with Jake brakes. You have all that happening, and I don't sleep comfortably. So yes, this is an alternative for that, but I like to call it a hotel for RVs more, because actually that's what we're providing, is everything you need except the bed, and maybe the morning breakfast and that sort of stuff. But ultimately that's what it's about. And where are those hotels? If you look, the hotels aren't 10 miles off the highway down by a river under a big oak tree, which is where all the campgrounds are. And I'm not an anti-campground person. I've used hundreds of them, and that's great. But I think that the lifestyle has changed. The way I use my RV is not what, when the campgrounds, many of them were built, is not what people actually do today in large numbers. Not all of them. There's a certain segment of the RV community, I think, that is like me, and that's what I'm building this for. But at the same time, if you're gonna, where this park is in the middle of kind of Canoe, Missouri Central, if you will. There are rivers and campgrounds around me, a few miles away, 10, 12, 14 miles away. There are beautiful campgrounds. They're my friends that own them. I know them. I do business with them. This isn't going to hurt them. If anything, it's going to help them, because sometimes they're over full, or sometimes there's a storm and people are scared to stay down by the river. But I guess the point I'm making is this RV park, where this particular one is here in West Sullivan, Missouri, can be a hub for other activities. It's not just you're coming to camp. You're coming to visit Aunt Susie, or you're coming to go canoeing tomorrow, but you kind of like to have internet tonight because you got business to do. And we have high-speed internet that comes with the site, and we have a cell tower, literally, you can almost see it in the picture, right next to the property. So that's the lifestyle. And you're not going to be stressed by parking here, I'll tell you that, because you're going to pull in and park about as easier than any place you've ever pulled into.
So I agree. Yeah, I agree with all that. And I think it goes to a bigger argument, or a bigger understanding of the space that we're in here when we talk about camping and the RV lifestyle. There's a misperception that we're all competing against one another as campground owners and RV park owners. And I personally believe that none of us are really competing against one another. The reality is our biggest competition in the RV space is and are Airbnb, hotels, other types of accommodations, and that's actually who we're competing against. And something like what you've created here, and the next thing I want to go into is your automation a little bit, because I think that's a key operational factor here of what you're building. But what you've created is kind of that next step. It's in between. It's a step up from this idea that I can park in a Walmart for free, because if somebody's willing to pay for an RV site off of the interstate that has hookups, they're going to be willing to pay for a resort. They're going to be willing to pay for that next spot too. And so now let's talk a little bit about the automation, because I think that was definitely the piece that caught my attention, because that's something that's definitely been talked about in the industry. And where is it going, and where are we at, and do we have the technology now to enable this in it? Obviously, you've figured it out, or you're creating it yourself. So of what you can share, what have you got going on to help you automate this experience?
Honestly, Mark, it's not that complicated. Every bit of the technology is out there being applied in other applications. It's just nobody's pulled it all together in the way that we're going to do it. And there could be variations on what we're doing. I'm not going to sit here and be so arrogant as to say we've got the only idea. A lot of people have thought about this, but I haven't found it. Nobody else has done it. And I have had a lot of people respond to a couple of other stories that's happened in the last week or so, saying, well, there is this one here or that one there. And they're similar, but one of the things is that people don't really understand the whole package of what we're doing here. And when we're done, and it will be completely automated. And so that is not out there that I've seen or heard yet. Now, at the stage that we are right now, possibly there's some that are close. And it's not really a race. I guess what I'm trying to say is we are using off-the-shelf hardware. You've all heard the term smart switch or smart valves, and that's where it starts. We built our foundation here to support what we're building. So I've overspent, and I am overspending on this project for where it is, because again, I could mitigate my risk of developing the whole concept because I already own the land, and I'm my own engineer to a certain degree. I've designed everything about it, and including the sewer control that we have, which is basically a sliding device that comes down and blocks off the sewer until the power's on, and you've got a button to push like a doorbell. It lights up and it buzzes, so you know you've done something, and you open up and you've got access to sewer, so that we don't have somebody dumping something that might not be sewer in the middle of the night or something, that sort of thing. But we've thought of everything, and we're in the process of getting it all done. But if I could back up just a little bit, because I want you to know, ultimately where I think these would fit is not necessarily compete, as you said, with other campgrounds. This isn't a campground, but for example, I'll talk about Lake St. Louis, Missouri, which is right on the edge of St. Louis at the confluence of Interstate 70 and Interstate 64, I believe it is. Used to call it 40, that's why I stumbled, but they changed it to 64. And there literally is a ton of traffic there. You're in the city. You've got, I know of 4 or 5 storage facilities within a stone's throw of that intersection that probably have 2,000 RVs of different types, just sitting these RVs, and are not able to use them in the way that I think people would want to use the asset if there's more places to plug it in. Not only those people that live there, it just means there's a lot of people coming through there. There is a Camping World there. There is St. Louis RV there within 2 or 3 miles of everything I'm describing. And ultimately, there's nowhere to stop unless you're pulling into one of the businesses that are there, but not a place to stop and spend the night if you want to look at a new motorhome tomorrow morning, or you've got Aunt Susie in the area, or you have a hospital test that you need to do. So you're going to rent a hotel room because you live 100 miles away. You're going to rent a hotel room because you can't use your RV and get anywhere near the hospital. So I'm thinking that there's a lot of assets going to waste in this country because we don't have facilities to support these RVs that we own already. And so that's a big part of what I'm envisioning where this model is going to go. Not just, West Sullivan, Missouri, out here in the Canoe Central, which is a big attraction in this area, but I think the population centers all across the country, like Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio is a perfect example. I drove through those 2 cities about a month ago in the middle of the night, tired as a dog, and looking for an RV site and couldn't find nothing. Wound up driving for 2 more hours to get to a KOA in Ohio. And that, if anything, solidified my instincts of what I'm doing. That night, 2 months ago, or whatever that was, 6-7 weeks ago, we happened to be on a trip, and I had left Louisville and was going to stay in the Cincinnati or Dayton area, and nothing all the way through there. And we wound up driving all the way up into dang near central Ohio before we stopped for the night. So, and we already had this park under construction. That's like, I know I'm on the right trail. And it's nice to have the endorsement of other folks, but one way or the other, somebody needs to do what we're doing. And there needs to be a lot of them, quite frankly, because there are millions of RVs sitting in stores not getting to be used the way that people might use them if there's places to park.
So are you an engineer by background? Is that your training?
No, I'm a builder. I actually own several businesses. I own quite a bit of warehousing. I own quite a bit of residential property. I built a lot of houses, rental houses and rental property pretty much exclusively. Warehousing, I own several warehouses for commercial industrial use. And so just by nature of what I do, but I also own a national sanctioning body for the sport of soft tip darts, which is kind of a technology business, if you will. I own a coin op business here in central Missouri. So I've had pool tables and jukeboxes and electronic devices for my whole last 35 years that I've been in business, 30 something. And so I have a programmer on staff that works for me in one of those companies. And so I've developed software. I've pulled together hardware before and integrated it with software. So there's a lot of synergy in the things, my history, my background, my personal experiences, that when I'm in my RV driving along, experiencing a problem of parking for the night because I don't like running the generator. And by the way, not to be argumentative with anybody, but parking at Walmart isn't free because you are still running the generator, and that's wear and tear and expense, fuel, and you pay an emotional price too, by the way, because it's not comfortable. I don't care who you are. You're not going to rest in a Walmart like you would rest in something like this, a little further away from the traffic, and knowing that you're safe, knowing there's security cameras. We've got 16 security cameras that we're giving every guest access to. We've got them on display in the control building. It's lit up all night long. So if your dog needs to go potty, you're not worried about your wife jumping out to take the dog potty on the edge of Walmart's parking lot with tires squealing on the other side. You know, those are the prices that you pay if you're at.
You kind of brushed off. Yeah, you brushed off you brushed off the automation question and said that it's readily available and it's just a matter of putting it together. And I would agree with you on that, but I think that you probably put a little bit of thought into it. For example, you mentioned the wastegate for the sewer line and the drop down that blocks it off. There may be something here. Some of the folks in this group that are going to be viewing this video, they're going to want to reach out to you and find out how you did this, and some of them are going to want you to do it for their parks, because the immediate objection that somebody's going to say is that this exists already. And the reality is, yeah, there are roadside RV parks designed for travelers, but they require staff. They require monitoring. They are not fully automated. And I think that's the hurdle that you're jumping into here, is that you're creating a fully self-service automated RV parking experience that includes the real-time booking, as you're mentioning, the security, the lighting, the signage, the striping. You've purpose-built this park for a specific niche and a specific audience, and that's where I think you're creating something very unique there. So you've been open as a soft launch a little bit. What are your early guests saying about their experience?
We've had nothing but good responses so far. Matter of fact, that one photo you showed I was kind of proud of that. We had a really bad storm Saturday night, and there was a family that pulled in the middle of the storm. They booked it and pulled in and parked within minutes. The guy in the pickup truck right there with they had a big trailer, a triple axle, and pulled right in, pulled right where he belonged. You know, didn't get soaking wet trying to find the site. I mean, literally, so many things that we've all experienced that I was proud to just see it happen for the first time in the middle of a storm, in the middle of the night. But I will back up. I didn't mean to brush off your question about the automation.
No problem.
From the get-go, for example, we supported this concept, and I went the most expensive route. We did. I mean, we have home runs on the electric and the water to every site. It's not a series, where everything just pulled off of one main. They are home runs from our control building, so we could use smart switches and smart valves. So every water line is on and off through an internet, accessed smart valve, and same thing on the electric. And we did that. Some folks said, oh, you could have saved a lot of money by just putting smart switches and valves at the site. And that's true, but then you'd have had more bulk at every site. You'd have something else for people to look at and say, well, what is that? Wonder if they needed to do something. My objective is to make this as stress-free as possible. So I wanted the site, the service station, I call them service stations. Each one of those, there's some photos on that Facebook page you can see, where it looks like a little miniature service station, but all of the services are right there. And they look as similar to what you see in any RV park that you're going to go to. The only thing that really is different is mine's lit up. The site sign is lit all during the night, so the whole thing is just lit. You're not stumbling around in the dark. And the only other thing that's different, there's two other small differences. One is you will pick 50 amp or 30 amp, 30 and 20 or 50 with a master switch, because we have a home run wire that is sized to provide 50 amps safely to every one of those pedestals. And we couldn't take a risk of somebody plugging in a 30 amp at the same time and turning the breaker on and trying to pull 80 amps or even 100 amps through all of the outlets that are there when we only have the wire size for 50. So they have to you can see the master switch in that several of those photos. It's right next to the pedestal, and it's clearly marked with decals saying select 50 or 30 and 20. That's the one small difference. The second small difference is the sewer door. You can see that other pedestal looking like device that's clearly marked, slide up to get access to the sewer, and there's a doorbell type button that lights up right next to it. Yeah. And you can just barely see the doorbell to the left of the photo there at the top where it says press button when lit.
Okay, right there. Okay.
Yeah, so when the power comes on, that doorbell lights up. It really does. It's a really pretty blue neon light. So even though it's not dark, it still shines right at you, and you can say, oh, there's the button. And when you push it, it buzzes. So you get the satisfaction of knowing, okay, I've done something, it's working. And literally you just pull up on that handle, and there's your sewer connection, which we wound up with kind of a bonus feature out of this device that we developed here, which is really simple. It's not that complicated. We've got stainless steel drawer glides that slides on, so it's not very heavy. It's just the right amount, because when you pick that up, there's your sewer. You put your head in there. You can screw it in like most of us do. But kind of the ironic or free bonus feature is the weight of that lid. You can let it right down on top of the sewer, and it holds it in place. So it actually is a little bit more convenient when it's all said and done, because you just let it set right on top of there, and you don't have to worry about it popping out and, you know, having that nightmare mess that nobody wants. So it's pretty slick. We're kind of proud of it now. Until we have somebody using it and it's getting wear and tear for a year or so, we might find that we have to make some improvements. Actually, this is funny because I mentioned we have a telephone AT&T tower right adjacent to the property. You can actually see the tower in that photo right above the service station for Site 24. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm going to invite you into the Facebook owners group so that you can keep us abreast of where you're going with this thing and how your progress goes. I think you're really onto something here. I love the concept. I'll actually be in this region in the middle of the summer here, so I definitely am going to add this onto a spot to stop just to experience it firsthand. You're onto something here. This is a very unique concept. Congratulations on actually moving on it, because a lot of people have talked about it. Nobody's moved on it yet, and you are. So good on you for actually taking the steps to make this happen. What other thoughts can you share with other owners about what you're building and how they should think about this and maybe adapt some of the things that you're thinking into their operations?
Well, it's tough. I have a tough time getting in the mind of somebody else out there. I can just tell you, for me as an RVer, I love using my RV in the way that my lifestyle requires it. And yeah, you can see that button real good right there, the doorbell button that I described. But yeah, I mean, it's brainless. We haven't had any, when you pull up to it, and I had a lot of people, obviously, as we're developing the signage and putting the decals where we put them and putting everything where we put it. We've had everyone, nobody's had any questions. Our signage, if you don't know, if you've never been to an RV park before, maybe you got to take a minute to read some of this and figure it out. But if you've ever been to an RV park before, all you're doing is looking for what you don't know. And there's only two things. It's picking your switch there on 50 amp or 30 and 20, or it's opening up the sewer and getting access to sewer. So as far
very smart.
As far as other RV parks, all I would say is, we're not trying to condemn RV parks or camping or anybody else's business model or anything at all. I think that there are a lot of RVs and campers that are going unused, and I think that we could actually help the industry tremendously if we get 100 or a couple hundred of these things scattered around the country. This one has 24 sites. I don't envision that we would need 50 sites or 100 sites. I think it's going to depend on where they're located and the traffic patterns. But the other thing is, we're overbuilding this one, so we'll have video and photos to take to those cities of the future that we're going to be dealing with, whose planning and zoning wants to know what the hell it is we're talking about here. So that's one of the reasons that I'm really overbuilding this site, to prove it out and test it, to make sure that we've thought of everything and learn. We don't know everything. We're going to make some mistakes. Our pricing might be a mistake. I've had a lot of people tell me that in the last week. We're too high. Well, maybe we are, maybe we're not. But it's funny. The same people are telling me our price is too high are the same ones saying don't let squatters come in and stay for more than a week or whatever. So it's like they want the site, they want the convenience, they want to have that comfort of knowing there's an option, but don't let somebody else be there too long, and don't charge too much. But I get it.
The advice I give. Well, here's the advice I give new owners on pricing if they're just starting a park like you are, is it's always better to go high because you can discount down from there versus starting low and then trying to raise your prices after the fact. So it's much easier for you to lower your prices. It's harder if you started out at 25 bucks and said, oh no, I need to be at 32 or whatever to break even.
And of course, that's true. And I don't mean to cut you off, but one of the things is here, this business model won't have the labor cost. So my hope, my belief is that we can spend more money on the real estate and be where the people are, location, right? But all of the traditional parks were hindered by, well, we're going to have X much in labor for our staff to do all these things. Well, I'm going to contract, for those things, and we're clean every day. We're not going to have a pool and a shower house. Sorry for those folks that want that, but that's not what we're building. So those things can go back toward the real estate investment, so you can put these where the people are and where they want to be for the concert or for the ball games or for the hospital stays or the next RV purchase or whatever, where all those things are located in higher population areas where the real estate typically I think has prevented somebody from being able to build something like this because of the cost of real estate combined with the cost of the expected labor going forward. So time will tell it if we're right or wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, this setup you've got here, the system you've created, I mean, I can envision it actually being installed at a Walmart. I mean, if there's space next to a Walmart, if people are already camping there, why not put one of these things next to a Walmart or next to a Flying J or, you know, or you know, and you may, go ahead.
Well, that's actually what we've done. I mean, this one here is a mile or so away from those things, but a mile is nothing. We're talking, you know, 60 seconds out the driveway and you're at a fuel stop. You're at, you know, Cracker Barrel, literally. Well, you can see the billboard for Cracker Barrel in the corner of that photo. It's literally 60 seconds or so away from this parking spot.
So this is a really good test site for this because you're going head to head with who you'd be competing against, which is the free alternatives. And so really cool to see that. And it's nice to see that you've already got guests pulling in there and staying and using the facility. So super excited that you're willing to jump on here and share this with us. Really interested to see how this goes. Jim, I appreciate it. This is RV Self Park. It is southwest of St. Louis, Missouri. Awesome concept.